You've done a weight loss transformation, probably more than one. You lost the weight, you had the results, and then at some point life went back to normal, and so did your body. And somewhere between then and now, you decided the problem was you. But it wasn't. The problem was what you did wasn't a transformation. It was a diet. And those are two completely different things, but nobody told you that. Most of the people who come to me have the same story. They've been on a plan before, they've followed it, they've lost the weight, they felt good, they finished it, they stopped following it, and ultimately they put the weight back on, and sometimes even more. And now they're sat here thinking the answer is just to find a better plan, a stricter one, maybe one they'll actually stick to this time. But that's not the answer, because the plan was never the problem. See, when we normally talk about diets, we're referring to something that has a start date and an end date. You go in, you restrict, and you come out. And the moment that you come out, you're the same person with the same habits in the same life. You just spent a bit of time eating less. A transformation doesn't have an end date, it has phases. And understanding the difference between the two is the reason that some people get lean and stay lean, whereas most people just keep going round and round in the same circle. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the 3 reasons that your transformation keeps failing and how to correct them. And number 3 is the exact framework that I use with clients to get them results that they never thought would be possible. Reason 1, you dieted, you didn't transform. Now this might not be easy to hear, but you were unable to keep the results because the result wasn't yours. Without realizing it, you essentially imagine the life, the daily habits of a person who looks the way that you wanted to look. So you started the diet and you live like them for a while, tracking obsessively, tolerating the hunger, maybe even doing daily cardio, but then the diet ended and you had no reason to live like that person anymore. So you went back to living your normal life. As a result, you were left with no understanding of how the food you eat actually affects your body. Just this idea of good food versus bad food, or diet food versus normal food. No idea of what your maintenance calories are, just a diet amount or no tracking whatsoever. No plan for the weekend, the holiday, the Christmas period, the works due, basically anything outside of this diet routine that you've created. So you end up going back to how you were eating before, because that's the only other mode that you've got. A real transformation doesn't end when the weights come off when you've finished dieting. In fairness, that's actually when it starts, because now you've got to learn to eat like a normal person, socially, flexibly, without a rigid plan, and still keep the same result. And that's the real issue. You never learn how to adapt and flex your life to fit the fat loss and find out what works for you. You just pause your life temporarily while you do the diet. And if this is sounding like you, then make sure you drop a subscribe, because I put stuff like this out every week. But look, if that is where you are right now, it makes complete sense, because that is what the industry sells. 12-week programs, 8-week challenges, 30-day fixes. I've even got one myself, although now doesn't really seem like a good idea to plug it, so I'm just going to keep going past that. But the issue is that none of them teach you what to do on day 31 once that period ends. But it gets worse, because even the people who do learn that bit, even the ones who understand calories, who track, who've done the educational side, a lot of them still fall into the same trap. And that's reason number 2, you're measuring the wrong thing. And I bet this is a trap that you're in right now. You're focused solely on weight loss, which means that you can measure it on the scale. However, the scale is not a transformation metric. Actually, let me rephrase that a bit clearer. The number on the scale tells you one thing. It tells you how much you weigh. It doesn't tell you what you look like. It doesn't tell you anything about your body composition. It doesn't tell you whether you're actually making progress or not. And when you think about it, you're not actually interested in how much you weigh. You're interested in the look that you attach to that weight. You want to be 2 stone lighter because attached to that is an image of a slimmer, more defined you. Yet somehow we still get pulled back into focusing solely on scale weight. But the truth is, you're not actually interested in weight loss, you just don't know it. You're interested in fat loss. And fat loss can't be clearly seen in scale weight. Let me give you an example. 2 litres of water is 2 kilos. So if you drink 2 litres of water and then you get on the scales and you weigh 100 kilos at that point, the next morning you get on the scales and you weigh 98 kilos. But this time you've not drank the 2 litres, so you've lost 2 kilos. Does that mean that your plan is working? Obviously not. It just means that you spent most of yesterday peeing out that 2 kilos of water that you drank. The scale is not a valid metric on its own. It's just a small part of a bigger picture. I've had clients gain a couple of kilos and look completely different, leaner, more defined, more athletic, because they've built muscle whilst losing fat. The number on the scales went up, but they looked better. By every metric, that matters. They made progress, but if the scale was the only measure, then they'd have quit. And it's exactly what happens to most people. Weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. If you want to work out your actual numbers for dieting, I'll leave a link in the description to my free deficit calculator. It'll help you to work out a starting point for your diet so you're not just guessing, and it's even got a diet builder built into the back end so it can give you some ideas and you can get your diet kick-started. Reason 3, you skipped the phase that creates the actual result. Fat loss only reveals what's already there. Think of it like the unveiling when you buy a new car. Just because someone's pulling off the cover doesn't mean there's going to be a Ferrari under there. If you've been dieting for years and you're still not happy with how your body looks, there's a decent chance it's not because you haven't lost enough fat, it's because there isn't enough muscle underneath for the fat loss to actually reveal anything. When you really get down to it and you move away from wanting to hit a certain weight, when you identify the physique that most people want, the one they point at when they say they want to transform the body, that physique was built, not dieted into. Broad shoulders, the big arms, the chest that stands proud, the tiny waist in a t-shirt, that's muscle, and you can't diet your way to muscle. You have to build it. The waist only looks tiny because the shoulders are so big. Without the shoulders, the waist wouldn't look small, it'd be straight up and down. Which means at some point, you are going to have to stop cutting and actually commit to a building phase. More food, structured training, accepting that the scale will go up and trusting the process. God, that makes me cringe so much to say it. But even when you don't look the way you want to yet, because most people will never do this, because they will get to a point where they're not quite happy with how they look and they'll start another diet, lose a bit more, do it again. And they're still not going to be happy with how they look, and they're just going to go around and around, never actually building any amount of muscle and never getting the result that they're actually after. So let me tell you what a real transformation actually looks like. And I'm even going to show you a few clients who have done it. So firstly, it's not 8 weeks, and I'm sorry, but that is the truth. It's phases. First, you diet properly in a real calorie deficit with your protein high and your training structured. And I've covered exactly how you can set that up in a video that I'll link at the end. So you get lean and then you reverse out of that diet slowly, bringing your calories back up without gaining the fat back. And then you start to build. You eat enough to support muscle growth, you train hard in and around failure, and you watch your body change shape slowly as the scale weight creeps up. Realistically, you want to do this for at least double the time that you dieted, and if you do it right, you should not be fat by this point. And then you diet again, but this time with more muscle, you've got a better base and a body that looks fundamentally different when the fat does actually come off. See, now you're pulling back the cover on the Ferrari. So let me show you my client Laura. On the left, she started at 66 kilos. She dieted, dropped 12 kilos down to 54. We then went into a surplus to grow, and in the picture on the right, she's actually 4 kilos heavier and she looks way better for it. And this is Nath. He started at 100 kilos, we dieted down to 82, so we lost 18 kilos, and then we pushed back up to 93, which is where we're at now. We're just about to start dieting. But this is the type of look that I'd expect by the end of the bulk, like I said before, not getting fat. And for most people, that full cycle would be 12, 18 months. But it really depends on how far you want to go, because the truth is, it is completely individual. Like take Neil for example, this was around 2.5 years, but that's because he actually dropped 83 kilos between the first and second picture, almost 50% of his body weight. And then we went into a surplus, and this is him now walking around 5 kilos heavier. He looks even better and is able to eat 3,000 calories without gaining any fat. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but the thing is, every failed diet you've done has already cost you that time. You're not saving time by doing another 8-week plan, you're just deferring the process and adding more months onto the back end. The person who starts the right process today gets there faster than the person who does 3 more quick fixes. And once you've actually done it properly, once you're lean with real muscle underneath, maintaining is nowhere near as hard as getting there. Because you finally understand how your body works. You know what to eat, you know how to train, you know how to manage the weekends, the holidays, the busy periods. You don't have to go monk mode every time you want results. You just have to know what you're doing. Every time you start a new diet, you're just interrupting the transformation that you really want. If you want to know what your actual phases should look like, what you should be doing right now based on where you're starting from, you can either use the deficit calculator that I told you about earlier that's in the description, or you can join my mailing list with a link which I'll also put in the description, and you'll get weekly tips from me that'll break down the stuff that you're doing wrong and how to correct it.